Hey, this is Neil Bawa, the mad scientist in multifamily, and you're listening to the Mailbox Money Show with Bronson Hill.
All right, welcome to the Mailbox Money Show. My name is Bronson Hill, and I'm really excited today. I have a friend that his name is Mark Quann, and he is a tax strategist and consultant. And I actually discovered Mark because I read his book, and it's called 10 Ways to Avoid Taxes: A Guide to Wealth Accumulation. And I was just so fascinated by it. Anything that talks about reducing taxes, paying zero taxes, I feel like I have just like a real affinity with that person because I feel like the government is not a great allocator of resources. And when the country started, there really was no income tax, and I think that the Boston Tea Party actually was over a 3% tax on imports. It was a very minimal tax, and yet people were they got so upset they started throwing the tea into the sea. So I think we need more of that. And when the top tax rate in California is actually above 50%, it's 50.3% for federal and state for the top tax rate. So we're gonna have a great conversation today about the buy, borrow, and die pay zero tax strategy. So Mark, welcome. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I just got back from a little vacation and then business trip. So, I get up every day and I get to work for myself and I don't have a boss. So life is pretty good. So,
Yeah, no, I love it. No, it's amazing when when I was a full-time employee working in medical sales, it's just like the time really is the thing that even though I know you're working hard, I'm working hard, but we can do it how we want to do it. That's the amazing thing that financial freedom gives you. And a lot of our people that invest or listen, they have a job they enjoy, but they are able to do it on their terms, or just even the thought of knowing they could leave and do it, or take a month off or whatever. That's huge, right?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't have to like call in and, I'm going away for a week and then I came back and then it was like business trip really quick, jump on the road again and jump on another
Yeah.
airplane and off to Texas for a business meeting. So,
Oh man, I swear, like I love traveling both for personal and for work. And people say, "Oh, you travel all the time," and I was like, I have my daughter, which really centers me. I have her half the time, and so I'm in LA a lot. But if not, I might just be a digital nomad all around the world. But it's pretty fun.
yeah.
But anyway, really excited to have you, man. Really excited to talk about tax strategy. And I know you're coming. I think you're coming as well. Well, we have an event coming up, the Advanced Real Estate Investing Summit. I'm not sure if I invited you to that, but we've got some tax strategists coming to that as well, one day event in October. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about your story, kind of how you got started. I remember you had a kind of I think it was like an injury story that kind of got you thinking about all of this. And so why don't you give people like a framework for how you got started?
Oh, wow. How far do we go back?
It all began with a young boy and a
It
dream,
all
right?
began, yes. He was born in Thompson, Manitoba. No, just kidding. No, no, I grew up in Canada and my dad was a construction worker. I've done all the construction jobs. I've done all those things. And just growing up there is we didn't have any money. Like my family has three generations of imagine three generations and nobody accumulated any assets.
Yeah.
No real estate, no stocks, no nothing. And I was like, this is not going to work. So I was just always very entrepreneurial when I was young. It was like, how do I start a business? Blah, blah, blah. And I ended up in California. I actually dropped out of college because I said, wow, there was something I was skeptical about it. I was like, wow, they have lots of student loans and credit card debts, but like there's no real financial education here. So I dropped out in Canada 23 years ago and came to California and became a private investigator. I was chasing people around with a video camera on workers' compensation claims.
That sounds exciting. Sounds like a TV, like a reality show or
Oh,
something.
it was good stories for another time. But yeah, but then I was like sitting in my car and I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in my car. And I was like, oh, that's why I didn't like school. I mean, so I think everyone's had some moment where they read a book, and I think a lot of us have read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And then it was just I didn't stop reading it. I read every book written by him and the co-authors, and including like Ken McElroy and all that stuff. Like just reading those
Yeah.
books. Yeah, for sure. So I started. I was just always an entrepreneur. I just needed a little bit of guidance, and then I became a financial advisor for 15 years.
I'm
And
sorry.
I know,
I'm
I
just
know,
kidding.
we're both in like
I'm recovering as
financial
well.
recovering financial advisors, right?
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah,
But yeah, and then I just realized that I'm not really providing the best advice for my clients, and that was in 2008 when I wrote my second book. That I was like, I kind of like, I didn't feel like I was doing the best service for my clients. So much like
yeah.
yourself. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, and then so that's interesting. The financial background There's a lot of help too. I think a lot of people don't realize that if people have had a business or they've been involved in different sorts of the business world, even myself with medical sales, like there's so much transference into other financial things. You can take all that and you can learn, and you kind of feel like you're looking at the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, or instead like the movie The Matrix, like you took the red pill, right? Now everything, you can't see anything the same. It's like, oh my gosh, all these people are just in the Matrix, and
Yep.
So talk to us a little bit about, I think there was a story, you were in the hospital and you had some revelation. I think that's in your book. Can you tell that story about how that kind of led you, because it really led you on your path, right?
It kind of did, yeah. I mean, just my path as an author was interesting because I was in a financial seminar I can't remember what year it was, and I was listening to John Maxwell, talk, and he was like, "You should write a book. All you got to do is read, write, and think." And it was like 5 points he made, and I was a bad note taker, so I wrote read, write, and think, and I was like, "Well, I can do that." So the first book was out against the banking industry, and it was called Rich Man, Poor Bank.
Okay.
And it was what the banks know why you don't know about money. But that took 5 years. It was a painful process.
Wow.
It's absolutely 5 years from start to finish. But then, and I was I remember saying, I'll never write a book again. That was too painful, but you know how it is. But then it was 2018, and it was a big transitionary period because one, I was doubting if I wanted to stay as a financial advisor, but and then I got super sick. I ended up in the USC Keck Hospital. And I needed heart and valve repair at age 40.
Wow.
At USC Keck Hospital.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. I was in a hospital, and they had scheduled full open heart surgery for like Thursday morning. And it was actually an echocardiogram nurse that came in the hospital and talked to me, and she closed the door and she warned me to get out of the hospital. She's like, whatever they recommend at this hospital, go get a second opinion. I was like, what? Crazy.
Whoa.
So I was in there, and I ended up at another hospital, USC Keck. I ended up at USC Keck because the echocardiogram goes, oh, if you're going to get a heart surgery, do it with this guy, right? So, and I was just in there, and I was on Norcos, and I was like, wow, like I was like, I got to tell people about tax avoidance and stuff like that. And so that's when I wrote Top 10 Ways to Avoid Taxes. It was in the intensive care unit of USC Keck Hospital in 2018.
Okay, that's the story. I was trying to figure, because I read the book on a plane, and I remember hearing the story. So you're actually in the hospital writing this book. And what inspires you? Most people are like, hey, maybe I should focus on just like, surviving and being okay. But you were like, I'm gonna write a book right now. Like, I was think avoid like facing death in a way, not really, but like you obviously knew you'd be okay, I think, but there was some surety of that. But you're like, gonna be writing a book. That's unusual.
I don't know why, but it just seemed like the right timing. I was like, wow, first of all, what would have happened to me if fate hadn't come in? That full open heart surgery would have ruined my health for the rest of my life. So this one person literally changed the course of my life forever. Wow. And then I was like thinking, like, what am I going to do with this time? Like, I'm not going to sit here and watch TV. And then for some reason, I write really fast on Norcos at the time. I was like, wow, as I started writing it, it was amazing how fast.
Is Norcos a medication? Is that what that is?
Yeah, Norcos is a really heavy,
like a narcotic.
Yeah, it was. And
that's what you're saying. So when I'm writing my book, it actually is coming out here in a couple of months. But you're saying you should. This is not medical advice, but he did better taking drugs.
I was very fast at writing the book on Norcos. I'll say it was anyways. So
it's interesting. You brought up a really good point, though, that a lot of times we're kind of, there's this common knowledge or common information. Here's what you should do. And in the financial world, in this case, it was something where, hey, this doctor says, whatever he says, and you got to do it. And they're going to, and the nurse says, hey, no, you got to get enough. And she kind of gave you a heads up. Otherwise you may not have done it. But, for financial stuff, it works the same way, where people are like, well, there's this way, the rich dad poor dad, you go get a great job, go do this, invest, have a money manager and get a benefits, do all these things that are traditional. But nobody ever gets wealthy through those things. Nobody actually gets ahead financially. And it's the things that, the best deals are the things that most people have never heard about. The best types of strategies are things that most CPAs are like, I don't know if you can do that, but you got to find the right type of person to be able to get involved with it. So can you talk, obviously you had the financial background. You're not a CPA, correct?
I'm not a CPA, no.
But you are a strategist. So talk to us a little bit about, let's just jump into it. Let's jump into like some of the strategy, because when we started talking about it, a lot of people think, hey, I've just got to pay taxes. Is it true that just everybody has to pay taxes?
Not really. No, this is not true at
Optional.
all. I mean, it is optional. But the problem is that the system is built to steer you in the other direction, right? It really is. And when I wrote the book about Rich Man Poor Bank, about the banking industry, it's funny because you write a book and go, wow, these banks don't have our best interest in mind, these mega banks. And then you become a financial advisor, and then you wake up one day and realize you're working for the same people essentially. And that's the
Yeah.
crazy part, is when you do the research, you realize that health and finance is very similar. It's got a lot of there's more money made in steering you, pushing you in one direction. And I'll give you an example. So within the course that I built fairly recently, there's like 7 levels of financial education. And level 3 is this, and I'll tell you something. If somebody believes that they need to save money, get good credit, max out their 401k to save on taxes, go get a Roth IRA and index funds, and then pay off your home quick, you're on the wrong track if you want to build wealth, because it's not true.
Yeah.
It ignores other people's money, and we speak the language of other people's money and taxes, but people don't realize that there's a lot of money made in just pushing you in one direction,
Yeah.
And Robert Kiyosaki would say that all those guys, all the guys who elevated their financial IQ, we all say the same thing these days, which is, it's in your book. So you gotta be careful where you get your advice from. And then, you do need a good CPA, but it's amazing how many CPAs give that same advice, save money, max out your 401k to save on taxes. That's a horrible strategy.
Right. But you're right. It's what a lot of people say, and a lot of people say you should do. And I think that's the whole thing, is just, finding other strategies, outside of the norm. That's how people get really ahead financially. What are some, just maybe you can talk to us about the buy, borrow, die. Is this using some sort of insurance products to do it? Or what are some of the ways that people are using this strategy?
It can be using it, and that's what I thought before I wrote. My third book is actually on the topic of insurance and stuff like that. But the fact is, you don't even need insurance to do it these days. You can use insurance, but you don't need it. I'm actually writing the book on buy, borrow, die right now, so this is a good time to have this talk. But no, the cool part is that buy, borrow, die is pretty simple. You have brokerage accounts as one thing. You don't use retirement accounts because you can't borrow from it. So all retirement accounts are eliminated from buy, borrow, die, all of them. Okay. And you have real estate essentially next to that. And as long as you can invest in a brokerage account and just take low interest loans, you could buy real estate with it. You could borrow from the real estate. So it's just about having liquidity and building family banks essentially. What I teach today is build 3 family banks. And that's the places where you can invest. And literally just press a button, take a loan with no application, no credit check, doesn't go on your credit score, and no payments on the loans. And I spent 2 years just figuring out how to do that. So, but it is because you just have to invest in assets that they grow. As long as you don't sell them, there are no taxes. Because you invest in buy, borrow, die, you buy an asset, you never sell it, and then you just take a loan from it. So you never liquidate the asset, right? And then you build another asset, and then you take a loan from that, and then you build that asset, and then you take a loan from that. And people don't realize, they say, well, that sounds bad. That's debt. They realize that billionaires think differently about debt. They understand that debt equals no taxes. So some people say debt is bad, but I would say debt is bad, but taxes are worse.
Yeah, well, it's the guru, or Dave Ramsey kind of model of no debt ever, everything in cash. And the challenge is we're a debt system, and I think there's good debt and there's bad debt. And I think good debt is where you use an asset, you take some debt and you go buy another asset, or you find some other. If you go buy a boat, or you buy something that's in a fancy car, like maybe that's not good debt. But if you find a way to do it. Now, you were sharing, I think now it's coming back to me a little bit. You were sharing through international brokers, or some of these kind of stock brokerage accounts, you can borrow. It was like 50 or 75%, loan to value, or I guess the total equity value, and you could borrow it. It was a pretty low rate, and it was like a home equity line of credit basically. And then when whatever you had in there, you were buying stuff that was. Can you talk about the type of assets you were buying in those accounts? Because it was like dividend paying stuff that had there was a lot of elements to it that were covering the cost of the finance for what was in there, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, we have a very unique system, and it's basically you invest in high income essentially what's called a covered call ETF, right? There's different forms of them. And there's pretty cool. By the way, there's, I'm not giving financial advice, but there's even a covered call on Tesla today where you could buy Tesla and then they do call options and they sell them and you get a really high income, and that sort of thing. So that's just an example of using that. But I'll give you the two platforms. I'll give you the breakdown of what I teach today and what took me 2 years. There's really only two places on the market that work really well for this buy, borrow, die thing, right? One is called M1 Finance, okay? And it's where you can invest. If you use high income investments, it's great because your debt is, you can end up with a very high dividend and a very small amount of debt. And it's a very safe way to do what we do, right? So yeah, it's, so M1 is a place where anybody can do it. As long as you have more than $2,000 invested, you could literally press a button, take a low interest loan and invest into something else. There's no application, no credit check, and it doesn't go on your credit score.
Yeah.
So it opens the door to investing. Yeah. And then the other one is interactive brokers. People don't really know it, but that platform works very, very well for buy, borrow, die. And the fact is, if you just name one of the bigger brokerages accounts, like the big guys, you just can't do it because the interest rates are too high. They actually prevent you from learning buy, borrow, die. Those other big brokerages, I'm not going to name the names, but the biggest ones, you can't really build an effective buy, borrow, die strategy. So it's M1 Finance, interactive brokers. And then knowing that there's sort of a cheat code in interactive brokers called portfolio margin. That's where you only need, depending on your investments, you only need 15% of your money in the investment account.
Wow.
15%. Just like in real estate, you kind of make more money with the less down payment. You can put 10% down on real estate. The bank puts the other 90%. It just makes your return on investments so high. You can effectively do the same thing, but there's only one platform in the world you can do it, and you need to have a very specific setup and that sort of thing. So this is a whole other topic, but it works. So I could literally log into an investment account and show you, like, I'll have maybe $100 in interest this month, but I'll have $400 I'll have debt interest that I'm paying of 100, but my dividends will be $400 a month.
Right. Yeah. You walked me through this before. I was really fascinated because it's interesting. I use physical metals. There's a way you can do part of this with physical metals where you buy physical gold and silver, and you can borrow against the value of it at 75% loan to value, usually like 7, 8, 9%. It's only the days you're out. There's no fees on it. So I like it for liquidity purposes. But your strategy, Mark, it has an additional benefit because you're getting paid from the investment that you hold. Gold doesn't actually return anything. It's just kind of a hedge. It's insurance. So for you, and you were showing, some of these dividends are, sometimes 8, 9, 10, 12, they're 12, 15, where they're high percentages. You're getting that. So the risk, and it's always important to look at risk in any strategy, but the risk is that if the value of what you've invested in has gone down and you no longer meet the 15% is pretty low, but you don't meet the 15% margin requirement, then you have to buy them or you get a margin call. So you just have to have liquidity to be able to cover that, right? That's the primary risk.
You do, but when you only need 15%, it's ridiculous. Like you could put 100 grand in an investment account and invest 200 grand the same day. Again, I'm not giving financial advice. Go see your financial advisor, right? But here's the problem is your financial advisor can't teach you this. Like you literally, if you went to a financial advisor and said, how do I do this? They say you can't do it. So that's the catch-all for everything. It's like, you can't get this advice from a financial advisor, and I'm not giving you financial advice, but you kind of have to learn. But yeah, you understand there's so much to this, but yeah, you can invest in stuff that makes 13, 15, 18% dividends, and you can borrow essentially at 6 to 7%. Now, if you have to look at the downside risk too, and I can show you on another time the tools we use to test it. You just have to make sure there's not too much downside. So that's called beta. You just look at how much your investment would lose if the market goes down. So if you can do this on like an index like the S&P 500, where you have, what your downside is, but like there's a position that we were using where the market lost 20%, we're only down like 5% because those high income dividends kind of hedge the portfolio. So there's a very safe way to do it, and it's just it works great if you do it wrong, but if you do it right, but if you do it wrong, it's going to be disastrous for you down the road.
I had I share this story pretty openly. I had my worst investment ever my net worth at the time was about 200K, and I lost $70,000 in one day doing an options trading strategy involving iron condors and other sorts of circus animals. But
Yeah.
I did not work the strategy right. So I know there's some element of being able to have to kind of watch things. And I realized for me, and I think this is for each investor, you got to figure out what really works best for you. Let me ask you this. If somebody is interested in getting started in something like this, do they, obviously they can reach out to you and you guys have a strategy to kind of help with that. Is there other groups and resources available to learn about this strategy?
The answer is I've never found one. I've never seen a person. We started building this stuff like 2 years ago, and we spent 2 years literally building this with about 120 different students going through the program. And then we had the crash of 2022, which was really important because we needed to really stress test it. We needed that 11 months of crash to make sure it works. But now, again, that's why I had to write another book, because it doesn't exist. There's no buy, borrow, die strategy book, right? So that's why I'm writing it, because it's life-changing. It truly is. And just the testimonials from our students are, one was a guy who used to teach Dave Ramsey at his church for 20 years. And he came in and he was like, "Oh, I'm the Dave Ramsey guy." And he just was like, "Uh-oh, red pill. Uh-oh, what do I do now?" You know what I mean?
You can't go back once you see it. Yeah, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's it really is amazing how we're taught things, so it's really to try to keep the knowledge away from regular people. And that's, I think Robert Kiyosaki talks about, basically the difference between wealthy and poor people is the vocabulary, right? To like that term portfolio margin. If you know what that means and you know how to utilize that in that, when you call a broker, like that is really valuable information. But most people never learn that, and they don't go out teaching that. And so there's this separation, Wall Street, and this is why I think you and I are both recovering from Wall Street and being an advisor. It's just that, it doesn't really, even being an advisor doesn't equip you to really help people in ways where you can actually do better than Wall Street, because Wall Street always gets paid no matter, even if your stuff goes down. And so they're more concerned about fees and assets under management than actually helping you grow your wealth. And that's why I find like really the like unless somebody has a business and they're making like $1 million a year and they've got a money person, like it's okay, they're going to help them save, put it in. But like people that I know that are really, really wealthy, they never got wealthy by following a traditional strategy. They always did things, so like people that are net worth over 100 million, the study that showed they own 26% commercial real estate, right? Like they own a lot of alternative things, and that's just the average. Some are more and some are less, but that's just, I'm so curious. And I know you're an innovative guy, Mark, but how did you come across this strategy? You spent 2 years just kind of like trying to figure out what's going on here, and like hedge funds do it, so why can't we do it?
it was like COVID came, and I'm like, what am I going to do, right? So I wrote the third book on insurance, but the third book talks about other people's money and that sort of. It even mentions a little about real estate and tax codes and stuff. And I was kind of teaching a strategy at the time of you buy insurance, you invest inside of it, and you borrow against insurance to buy the real estate, right? And then you can use cost segregation and stuff like that and that sort of thing. So I started this. Somebody kept telling me you should write a financial education course. I'm like, okay, I should probably do that. So I started writing the course and my third book at the same time. And then I just got like 20 people together and some friends and stuff and said, "Hey guys, you want to run along this thing with me?" And I was already using M1 at the time. We were borrowing at 2%, so we could borrow at 2% interest, and you could invest in a covered call that paid 12% interest on the S&P 500. So you're like, the math was crazy at the time. You're like, press a button and you're borrowing tons of money, and then your interest rate is 2% and your covered calls are 12 on the S&P 500. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. That opened up the rabbit hole. And then we figured out how to do it on interactive brokers. And like I said, there's regular margin called regular people rules. The cheat code is thing called portfolio margin, because you have to have over 120,000 to invest. But then your portfolio, your maintenance margin, how much thick skin in the game, can go down to 15% when you structure the portfolio right. So that just opens the door, because I'll give you a basic structure. If a person could use M1 Invest and do that, and then they could use interactive brokers to invest, and they could essentially borrow from that to buy real estate, right? And then they're borrowing the down payment to buy the real estate. The real estate kicks off tax-free money, and then there's tax-free money funding a buy, borrow, die strategy. Well, you're taking a strategy that, as long as you never sell, it's never taxable. When you're borrowing, it's never taxable. And then you're generating tax-free income from real estate to fund a strategy which is never going to be taxed again. So if you understand the real estate side of it, and then you can do the same thing with insurance. Insurance is as far as the upside, no downside, no taxes. Those four parts together are great. If you take M1, interactive brokers, real estate, and insurance policies, and you put those four things together, and you know the tax codes, you can generate huge tax-free revenue through real estate, which funds brokerage accounts that are never taxable, grow with no taxes, borrow from them. You die, everything goes to your heirs with no taxes.
Yeah.
So it's just those four parts, and this will all be in the book eventually. But I'm probably 3 to 6 months away from releasing the book on it.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to read it and hear more. So, I guess a question on that. So you're saying if you borrow against this account that is for those that aren't familiar, interactive brokers and M1 are online brokerages that you buy stocks and things like that. But if you borrow against that and you buy real estate, you're saying the real estate is not taxable because you used it from a loan to buy it? Is that
essentially
or depreciation?
Let me tell you three things that you're fighting in this world. The working penalty. That's where you work really hard and they take 30 to 50%. You've probably seen that one before.
Yeah, well, it's very true. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And then there's a distribution penalty. If you ever sell your investments, they'll take 30 to 50%, right?
Right.
And then you're fighting inflation, right? So inflation is you're trying to save this money over time. Buy, borrow, die essentially eliminates all three of them. Because if I invest $50,000 in my investment account and I borrow $20,000 to buy some real estate, I didn't have to pay taxes on that $20,000 because it's debt. So I immediately avoided having to work super hard and fight inflation to get that 20 grand. I just press the button and there's 20. I use that as a down payment on a piece of real estate. Well, I just borrowed the money, which avoided taxes, put it into real estate. Now that real estate could essentially, you could rent it and collect tax-free revenue. That takes tax-free revenue could go back into your brokerage account, which is tax-free revenue funding it. And then you can just kind of run that system.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, there's all kinds of, that's really incredible.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I feel like there's a lot here we could talk about. I really encourage, I've just read one of your books. I need to read the other ones, but I think this is an awesome strategy that most people don't know about. And that's what we're always looking for your mailbox money is strategies that people, are unfamiliar with because it's a thing that you don't know about that could really be an incredible resource for you. So this is definitely one of them. Mark, what is a way people can connect with you and get in touch with you?
Okay, good. Probably like Instagram is probably the best way. Just, you can leave a message there, just to connect to me. But here's the one thing I want to say is buy, borrow, die is not new. Okay. It was coined by a USC business professor in the mid 1990s. So the strategy has been around forever. It's just people don't know it. Now you can just go Google it or go on YouTube and look at it and it tells it about it. There's even an article and I think it's the Wall Street Journal on how average Americans can buy, borrow, die. So here's the cool part about buy, borrow, die, which I love, is anybody can use it. Anybody who's working a job, as soon as you save $2,000, you can essentially build a buy, borrow, die. If you're middle class and you understand how to use it, it can elevate you even higher. If you're a Henry or high earner, not rich yet, that can really accelerate you to going, and then you can become one of those super wealthy people to do it. But yeah, I'm pretty easy to get hold of through Instagram or wherever. I got a lot of social media out there, but it's the coolest strategy I've ever discovered. And, in all the years I've been writing books and study finances. So it's pretty exciting. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, we'll put your links in the show notes there. People can reach out and the way to contact you and reach out. So check that in the show notes. Mark, I just really appreciate your willingness to collaborate and share these awesome strategies. A lot of people find something and find a strategy like this and they just kind of hoard it. And I think there's so much around tax strategy and just different ways to be creative with finance. So that's become a central area of interest for me and for a lot of our investors. So really appreciate you being here today. I look forward to connecting with you. I know you're in the LA area as well. So hope to have you out on meetups locally at some point in the near future. But man, great to connect with you. Thanks for being on the show today.
No problem. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Mark. All right, so I'm a huge fan of tax strategy. I love what Mark is doing. If you've been around us for a while, been around here for a while, you know that I'm always talking about paying less taxes. I don't think the government's a great allocator of resources. And there's two things. There's one, tax avoidance. Actually, tax avoidance, and even John Maynard Keynes says that tax avoidance is the only tax strategy that really has some reward. It's something that actually pays you to do it. There's tax evasion, which is taxes you actually owe, but you haven't figured out how to reduce that you are avoiding to pay. So there are two, and that's a punishable offense by going to jail, and there's celebrities sometimes go to jail for tax evasion and things like that. So that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is finding a way to partner with the government to find different incentives that you can use or different strategies in the tax system, which is thousands of pages to be able to reduce your taxable incentive. So I'm excited to hear or to read Mark's book when it comes out, The Buy, Borrow, Die Strategy. I think it's a really compelling strategy to look into. There's always risk of any strategy, and I think the risk of this strategy is that maybe you borrow against assets, you own stocks in this type of account, and you borrowed against them, and the value of those stocks that you bought, or whatever the index funds or whatever you buy, they go down, right? So there is some risk there. So everything has risk, and I always tell people every investment has risk out there, right? So you always need to consider your downside. You always need to learn. So this show, the Mailbox Money Show, is dedicated to helping you grow your passive wealth. It's helping really to educate folks to grow, personally, individually, financially, all of the ways. So we'd love it if you'd share this with a friend, if you'd pass it along to a friend or family member you think could benefit from this, because we're really trying as hard as we can to create things around building and maintaining and really creating generational wealth that you can have. And Mark talked about that a little bit, about how do you create, his family really didn't have any generational wealth. And I think that's totally understandable, right? Most people don't think about that, right? But there's a proverb I love that says, a wise man leaves wealth to his children's children, right? So you even have stuff left over for your grandchildren. What a beautiful legacy that is, to be able to have resources, to be able to share, and to be able to give to the causes you believe in. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mailbox Money. Look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thanks for taking the time to educate yourself, and take today and make it a great day.
You've been listening to the Mailbox Money Podcast. For more free resources, articles, and videos, go to bronsonequity.com. There you can download your copy of the special report, The Single Best Investment Strategy During and After a Pandemic. None of the information shared here is an offer to buy a specific investment, and this is for educational purposes only. Consult your financial, legal, and tax professionals and use your own common sense before making any investment decisions. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to tune in next time for more Mailbox Money.